I am live and I am waiting for my guest to arrive. We had a few issues with the sound. So I'm just messaging to see if he's coming back in again. We had a bit of weirdness going on. I was trying to see if I could hear my guest, and then all of a sudden I managed to mute my guest, and then I couldn't unmute them again, and now I don't know what's going on. I don't know where they are. Let me just see if I can. Don't know what's going on. Anyway, so yeah, I trust that my guest will be back shortly. It's always fun when these unexpected things happen, isn't it? And you don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah, I'm just trying to see what's going on. I don't have any messages from my guest. I don't know. Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. I don't even know if you can hear me at the moment, because I haven't the faintest idea. So yeah, what fun. I don't even know if I can test whether I can hear anyone can hear me or not. I'm not on LinkedIn, so if you are or on Twitter or on YouTube, so I don't know if you can hear me. Please put a comment in somewhere. That would be nice. I'll try and send an invitation again to my guest so that they can join me. Let's just see what happens here. Don't know what's going on at their end. So we never know. We never know. They were in the studio with me, and then just because I had managed to mute them, they popped out. I was expecting them to come back in again, but they're not here yet. So, always fun, this, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm still, as you can tell, faffing a bit, trying to see if I can get my guest back on again. I don't know what to do this minute, to be completely honest with you. That's why I'm just trying to see if I can get hold of my guest. If not, so today's topic is why ignoring intellectual property rights will cost you time and profits. And yeah, I'm kind of still waiting for my guest because he was here and he was. He's not coming back to me at all. So I don't know what to do about this. It's always more interesting when there's somebody else with me live. However, if there are technical issues, then that becomes an issue, doesn't it? So just I'm just going to see again if I can catch them on LinkedIn, maybe. No messages. Okay. Well, so yeah. When you are somebody who create valuable content to share with your audience, it doesn't matter what kind of audience you have. The thing is, anything that you create yourself. Oh, here we go. Are you back now? I still can't hear you. I wonder. At least now I haven't muted you again, so that's not the reason. It's not mute at my end. So at least you're here. That's a beginning. Do you have a microphone headset? I'm just wondering because we did have an issue when we were doing Zoom together at one point, weren't we? I can't hear you. I can see your lips moving, but I have no idea what you're saying. This is so fun. Or maybe not. Um, hmm. I was just trying to see if there were some settings that I could do anything with. So I was trying to move forward with my topic here about why ignoring intellectual property rights will cost you time and profits. Do feel free to fiddle around, Phil, and then potentially at one point I will hear you. I hope. So when you are somebody who creates content, and as I was saying before, it doesn't matter what kind of content, so long as it's your own, and so long as it's content that is so Phil has asked me a question in the back channel, so I'm just going to answer that. So the thing is, I still can't hear Phil. So and can you even hear me? You can hear me. Okay, that's always something, isn't it? So what I was trying to say is that when we create content, as long as it's something that has our own thumbprint on it and is original, then it's worthy of protection. I don't know, Phil, have you got any headphones that you could use? You were using those. No, you don't have them? Oh, how frustrating. I do not understand why this is. But your name has disappeared now for some reason. It was there. Oh, and maybe it's because I put a comment up. Let me just take the comment away. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Haha. All right. So I don't know. Can you write comments that I can put up on the screen? I have no idea what you're saying. Oh, he just left. Okay. So anyway, so he probably needed to talk to somebody or do something else. I don't know. Anyway, so once you create content that is that is original, it is worthy of protection, as I said, and this means that this means that you don't have to accept that other people are copying your content, because when that happens, that is plagiarism, first of all. And second of all, there's a reason why people like me specialize in what I do. And if you do not protect it, then that is when it will cost you time and profits. So and you've spent so much time putting effort into your content, so why just leave it unprotected? You know, that makes absolutely no sense to me. You are the creator, so take yourself and your business seriously. I'm just going to see if there are any comments from Phil. He's going to use his phone. Okay. That might help, actually. Let's see what happens. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Phil has to say, because he knows about these things as well. And we've known each other for a few years now, Phil and I, and he's a really good guy. He's very intelligent and knows a lot of things. So very shortly he will come back. So that's really excellent. So because you are somebody who has created, and it doesn't matter if you consider yourself to be a coach or a consultant or a speaker, or it doesn't matter. Here we go. There he is. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yay. The joys of a mobile phone over a laptop.
But it's just so weird, because you said that you had been on a Zoom call and there weren't any issues, and then you jump on my StreamYard call and then can't hear you, and it was just
weird.
Too weird for words. Can you put it down on landscape?
Yeah. Bear with me. No, that's upside down.
Yeah. Oops, you turned yourself upside. There you are. Yay! Woohoo! It works. It works. So as I was saying,
got there eventually.
People, it doesn't matter whether they are coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, because all of these people create content. And I don't know if you noticed, the other day I was sharing a post from a connection of mine on LinkedIn, and she was sharing something about not getting disheartened when people steal their content. There's no reason why people should even accept that their content gets stolen. That's why people like me exist. You know, there's a whole point in me specializing in what I do. Wouldn't you say that it's a better idea to protect content instead of just allowing other people to steal it?
Yeah, most definitely. That's the whole purpose of having trademarks and IPR, isn't it? And
it doesn't even matter if what you create is a product, because anything that has inherent value is worthy of protection, if you ask me. So you might even be somebody who produces something physical. I mean, the other day, a while back, I connected with this lovely young woman who, with a friend of hers, has created a place where they bake biscuits, and they have registered their business name, which is the Biscuitery. I mean, how fantastic is that? You know, and I'm like, wow, ladies, that is so magnificent, because they obviously understand the value of what they've got. And things like that make me so happy. I don't care who does the protection work for people, so long as they actually know and understand that what they've got has value.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Because otherwise people leave money on the table, and anybody can just come and swipe it, their content, and we don't want that, because when we work hard for whatever thing that it is that we are doing in this world, we've been put on this planet for a reason, and we're all here to shine our light. And if we don't do that, then we get disheartened, and as I say, it's far better to actually protect it, and this week I am doing this workshop, and I'm looking so much forward to that, and it's going to be absolutely magnificent. Are you looking forward to it? I know you've got a ticket, and
I'm looking forward to it.
What made you want to participate, if I may ask?
I think for me, the whole thing is about every small entrepreneur, or every small business entrepreneur, I should say. We're not all tiny. Is effectively, as you've said on here, is leaving money on the table if they don't do something about their IPR and about trademarking. I think loads and loads of businesses don't realise, whether you're starting up, whether you've scaled and you've been running for a while, or whether you've been running for a long time, and you might have been very, very lucky and somebody hasn't pinched your logo or your business name. Obviously, if somebody has along the way, then you've got lots of legal costs involved. You've got the time, the hassle, and potentially losing loads of business where somebody else has effectively pinched your whole business. Exactly the same as if somebody had pinched your domain name for your website, but used all of your goodwill with all your existing customers, any new ones. To work so hard as a small business entrepreneur, and then have everything taken away from you and potentially having to rebrand or start again, it's tremendously costly. Not just financially, even though it is financially costly, but also, you've got all the time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that you've invested in it. But loads of
there's also the tiny detail of having to make your existing clients see that the rebranding is a positive thing, which they might not feel.
Yeah, very potentially. I mean, somebody can very easily take over your business if you haven't got everything protected, and in essence can ruin your reputation. So even if you're able to get those things back, essentially, if they've dealt with a load of clients, with those clients thinking that they're dealing with you, it's very easy to completely trash your reputation, trash your brand, and you're the one losing out all the time. There could be fraudulent individuals who have pinched all of your brand, all of your IPR, your whole business. The other thing I think is, when people are running businesses, and this is particularly when you have a product. I used to work in manufacturing when I was in finance, an accountancy. Big projects was my original career for a manufacturing company that was international, and there was always people trying to pinch the blueprints. People were trying to pinch the way of manufacturing, particularly lots of different people abroad. But one of the things that people don't realize, if they're running their own manufacturing company for whatever product, is that a huge part of the value of your business is tied up in not just the bricks and mortar, but actually the whole of your intellectual property rights. And so you're actually creating value rather than trademarking being a cost, like your rent or rates that you have to pay, or, when you're covered for GDPR, you have to pay the commissioner money every year. This is not really a cost, it's an investment. And the investment that you make within your trademark is something that will pay dividends hugely if ever you want to have your business valued for whatever reason along the way. But also if you want to sell your business at a later date, when you're coming up to retirement, the value of your business, if you haven't got a trademark, will be a smidgen of what the value will be considered as by those valuers, by
I
somebody
know.
who.
I keep saying this the whole time, and it's so interesting that people who know about the business side of things will always say to people, part of your exit strategy has to involve a registered trademark.
Definitely.
And still so many people don't even have that and don't even realize, as you say, that the value of their business will be a smidgen compared to when they have a registered trademark.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think, Celeste, people realize that, even though we pay insurance for professional indemnity insurance and such like, those insurances, those other business insurances, won't cover you for recovery of your business if somebody pinches it, if you haven't got a trademark, for instance. I think, Celeste, you've actually mentioned something to me recently about the possibility of recently, even if somebody has got a trademark and somebody's infringed it, there is now an insurance where people can insure against that eventuality, can't they?
Yes, that is absolutely true. So I didn't even know about this until very recently. There are actually different types of insurance out there. There are different companies that do insurance. I've been in touch with a guy called David Bloom, and he does insurance of intellectual property. There are also other companies. I don't know them personally, so I don't know what their onboarding process is with this guy David Bloom. I know that the onboarding process isn't a lengthy one. It's just a question of you providing the correct information. I do not sell insurance because I'm not qualified to do that. So I would never do that. What I would do is I would send people to this person that I know and say, look, talk to this guy about having your intellectual property insured, because it's definitely worth it. Because if you happen to find yourself in a situation where there is an infringement, it's definitely worth having the insurance so that you don't have to bleed all your cash flow into taking the matter to court. And we all know that when we take something to court, it can be really costly and take an awful lot of time. So that's I find it so exciting that people can actually insure their intellectual property. I mean, why not?
Definitely. I think the other thing for me, Celeste, is the fact that if you have a trademark and you have to chase after somebody legally if they've infringed it, it's costly, both time, effort, and money. But if you haven't got a trademark, you can multiply those costs by sort of 10,
At
100.
least, yeah.
Yeah, because essentially, as we say, you may well be able to get your business back, but the likelihood is that you're going to lose your business in its entirety. So still, always better to have that trademark, and utilizing the insurance you've just mentioned gives you like a double protection, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I keep mentioning this. I heard a while back about this person. I don't know them personally, so I'm not going to share their name because I do not have permission to do that. They had built their business up to a certain level, and they were wanting to invite investors in. What then happened was the investor did a hostile takeover, and this person was completely devastated. And yes, I get that when they took over the business, they didn't have the person themselves. However, they were forced to start all over again, which is devastating and time-consuming and frustrating. And as I say, you have to start all over again from scratch and get going again. And yes, it is possible to do, but why not just protect it from the beginning so you avoid that situation,
Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing that people don't realize is if you need to raise funds downstream, so for instance, it could be, you want to buy a building. It could be that you want to expand, buy, more machinery if you're in manufacturing. Or it could be that, if you're somebody who's running a service business and you want to franchise out your business, all of those things require extra capital. And if you're looking to raise finance, the valuation of your business is what that finance is going to be factored on.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a trademark, like we said earlier, the value of your business won't be as valuable as if you had a trademark. You won't be able to raise the same amount of finance as if you had a trademark. I don't know if many people watch Dragon's Den, but one of the things that they always refer to when they're looking to invest in people is, whether they have the rights for something, whether they have a trademark, what sort of legal things do they have in place to make sure that somebody can't pinch their business. And if they're asking those questions, banks and other potential investors. My brother's into venture capital. He runs a venture capital firm up in Scotland, and again, it's one of the things that he would automatically ask all the time. For those individuals, it's just taken as read that you have secured your business through trademarking, and if you haven't, for those individuals, those third parties, it's a red flag to them. It's a red warning light, and it should really be for every entrepreneur. It should be a red warning light that if you haven't got your trademark in place, that you should do. You wouldn't operate necessarily without insurances. You wouldn't operate on the basis of not having terms and conditions and all those things. And a trademark should just be part of that portfolio of things that you need to have in place.
And also, when you've got intellectual property, all of them, as I keep saying, go hand in hand. So like you've got written content which is covered by copyrights, then you've got products that you can stick your trademark onto, or it may not even be a product. It can be your website that you stick your trademark onto. I've got my trademark on every single page in my book, so and all of these go hand in hand. And if you're somebody who creates a product, you may very well think about the presentation. How does it look when your client receive this item that you're selling? Like when we get an iPhone, I keep talking about iPhone because that's what I've got. I don't know what the other people do, but I know that Apple puts an awful lot of thought into the way their product is presented. And I imagine that it's the same with the other phone companies. And I know that a lot of other companies like Coca-Cola, they thought about, back in the day when it was a glass bottle, they thought about the way the glass bottle was shaped. And it's not a coincidence. It's called trade dress. It's the way that it's presented to people. And there are even some secrets, like the recipe for how Coca-Cola is put together, the recipe, that is trade secret. And all of this goes hand in hand. And the more you've got, the stronger shield of protection you've got. And so it's about understanding that whatever it is that you've created, being a product, a service, doesn't really matter. It's understanding that this has valuable. This is part of who we are. This is, and the whole point in a trademark is that your clients become loyal to it. People are so loyal to the Apple trademark that they will sleep in the streets before the launch of a new item. I don't know if it still happens. It certainly did before lockdown. And that's the whole point. You want to create that kind of loyalty. You want them to feel that you understand them and that you get what it is all about, because with Apple, it's a lifestyle type thing. It's the same with Hermes. Their handbags and their luggage is a lifestyle thing. It's the same with Moet et Chandon, for instance, the champagne, and Tiffany's. All of these companies, they understand the inherent value, and they understand. And what I really love about these big brands is that they see the value of collaborating with each other. So you've got suddenly Nike and Tiffany's that are doing things together, and you think, where did that come from? But they see the value of each other's community, so to speak, and they see the value of collaborating, quite frankly. And so instead of competing and instead of fighting each other, they say, let's do this together. Let's hold each other's hands. Let's lift each other up. And it's the whole thing about lifting each other up that brings value.
The other thing, Celeste, I think, is that a lot of people across the board, lots of business people, have an assumption that trademarking and intellectual property rights, all relates to big companies, all relates to big business.
They all started somewhere. They all started small. Apple started in a garage, for crying out loud.
Yeah, the whole thing about trademarking and IPR is that it applies to every size of company, every size of business. And ultimately, if you're looking to grow your business, part of the way of growing it is to have your IPR, your intellectual property rights protected, is to have your business trademarked so that you can expand, so that people who are looking to lend you finance, or suppliers even, will potentially, for manufacturing companies, for instance, check on whether what you're producing is trademarked, because their products are potentially going into your product. So it's got a whole raft of implications, essentially. But there's a misconception that trademarking and intellectual property rights, is the preserve of big companies. For instance, I know a business coach, and he's very astute. He used to be a consultant for one of the big consultancy firms. He has literally just a blueprint. So it's pretty much a diagram with lots of words behind it, but he has it trademarked. He has it in such a way that he is able to sell that concept of how to business coach a business. And so business coaches pay him for his intellectual property right for that particular schematic, for that particular unique way of coaching and consulting with those clients. And so his business has turned from him being a business coach into him selling his intellectual property.
And another way of doing that is to give people license, so that once they've learned his way of doing things, they then have a license to do it themselves.
Yeah, basically,
and
he
with a
sells
license, he then gets money still running like a passive income stream, actually.
Definitely, yeah, which is what he does. You know, he's pretty much semi-retired now and lives by the beach in Cornwall because he has passive income coming off the back of those licenses that just roll in. You know, the other people are doing the hard work, but what he's actually sold is, you know, his IPR.
Yeah. He hasn't sold it, he's licensed it.
Yeah, he's licensed it.
Yeah, because that's the big difference. Because if you sell it, then you don't keep ownership of it. When you give a license to somebody, then you still get money kicked back to you from it. And that was something else, because I spoke to a potential client a while back, and they just wanted to sell it, and I was like, why don't you give a license though? Because that way you have money coming back to you. And I think it's a kind of mindset. Some people totally understand that it's a good thing, and then there are people who feel that because of the way that tax is being utilized, you know, the money that comes into the government or to the state from tax, then they don't want to pay taxes. And I just feel that that's too bad, because they're cutting kind of their noses off to spite their face. Because if you have a really excellent idea for, say, a product, and you do not want to make money off it yourself, people don't take you seriously. They really don't. They think something is wrong with you. And they don't want to spend time, money, and energy looking to help you develop this thing if you do not take yourself seriously. And people will think that, well, if you don't want to make money off it, then why should I help you? Because if you're not wanting to make money, then what's the whole point? And they may very well be right, you know. So it's a mindset shift, I think that needs to happen for those types of people. And I'm not criticizing anyone here. I'm just saying I think it's a mindset shift, because even if they don't want to make money themselves, they could potentially set it up to go to a charity, for instance. That's what I imagine. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't know. But I imagine that was something so they could deflect the money away from themselves if they don't want to be on the radar or whatever, you know. What do you think? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think with everything. I mean, if you look at one of the things that we've all heard about is Peter Pan, for instance. And what a lot of people don't realize is that anything to do with Peter Pan, whether it's, you know, the films, other books, whether it's merchandise that gets sold, the money now goes to Great Ormond Street, which is set up as a charity, you know, Great Ormond Street Hospital.
Okay.
And so the money goes into Great Ormond Street is basically a children's hospital, and obviously Peter Pan is all about children.
Yes.
So everything to do with Peter Pan is all trademarked. Everything about Peter Pan is licensed out, so that if anybody wants to use even Peter Pan's name, you know, it's all protected. And as Celeste was mentioning there, the money is not a profit. Well, it makes profit, but that profit is basically there to donate to charity. So again, even if you are a not-for-profit organisation or an organisation who wants to do some sort of social good, trademarking IPR is still relevant.
Absolutely, yeah. I couldn't agree more, obviously, but hey ho.
Yeah, completely. I mean, ultimately, any business that's running without those things, without protection from a trademark, you're both running a risk that you're going to incur costs, but you're also running a risk that you are losing out on potential revenue. And even more so, like we said about the guy I know who's the ex-consultant, you're missing out on the potential opportunity of either selling your business later or having a load of passive income that will allow you to, just work 2 days a week or retire early, and you've still got money coming in.
Yeah.
If you're not being sensible about trademarking, if you're not being sensible about what you do with your intellectual property, you're literally missing out on a whole business tree.
Absolutely. So shall we talk about the event that's coming up on Thursday? You are joining me. What made you want to join again?
I think the thing for me is all those things that we've spoken about today, Celeste, and also obviously I have your book, which you've kindly signed for me when we were at an event. I've got my copy here. There's my copy there.
Oh, you have it.
I don't know if that's the right way around.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But essentially, I'm not an expert in trademarking and IPR. Although I have a business background, I'm a chartered management accountant. So in theory, I should know about all these things, but I don't. And so for me, it's about genning up on all those things. You've termed it trademarking 101. So for me, it's a bit like building a house. You've got to know the foundations. You've got to have solid foundations to be able to then either go on and if you're somebody who's a technical wizzo, somebody who's got a legal background, and you want to do your own trademarking, then it's useful for that. More importantly, it's going to give you an indication about whether you want to spend time, effort, and money on going through a trademarking process yourself. It's a little bit like trying to do the conveyancing on your house. In theory, anybody can do the conveyancing on their house. You don't have to be a solicitor or anything like that. But how many people really want to do their own conveyancing? It's a legal minefield. It's one of those things that is really time consuming, as people well know if they've ever bought a house. And so the thing for me about your workshop is about for people to be able to decide, do they want to do it themselves and, spend all that time, effort, and money, or do they want to ask you, Celeste, to do it for them? I know which one I'd prefer to do. I've never tried conveyancing my own house, and
I haven't.
Anything I ever try and do, I know that I'm not an expert in, and I know that if I was to try and do these things, I would just make a complete, mess of it and end up with loads of problems, and probably end up coming back to the expert at the end of the day anyway. So rather than run that risk, if I have a burst pipe, I call out the expert plumber. If I have an electrical problem, I call out, the expert electrician.
And if you need a lung transplant, you don't go to the butcher, you go to the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The whole thing about everybody having their own expertise is that we don't have to do it ourselves. And so as we were talking about earlier, with trademarking and IPR being an investment, the cost of hiring the expert to do it for you isn't actually a cost, it's an investment, because you need to have it done properly. You know, there's no point in having half your business trademarked. You know, there's no point in having loopholes in the things that you've got. You need it to be fully protected, the same way as you would do, you know, your household contents and you know, your buildings content and contents insurance, for instance. You know, you wouldn't go out and drive a car without having insurance. Well, you're not supposed to. And so, you know, all those things for me, your workshop is covering from the perspective of, you know, you being the expert. Who better to learn from than the expert?
Exactly. And as I said, you know, if I wanted to have, or if I needed a lung transplant, I wouldn't go to the butcher. I would go to an expert who knew exactly what they were doing. The butcher might know about where the lung is situated, but they might not be as good as somebody who studied medicine and who knows the correct procedure in that case. So yeah, it's about valuing each other for the specialism that we have, you know. I can't even remember what your title is now, Phil. What is your title now?
So effectively, I'm a burnout coach. So I help people to
That's it. Yes.
avoid and recover burnout. But I also do business mentoring. So I still utilize my finance background to kind of help people to start businesses, scale them.
So if I felt that I was on the verge of burnout, I would contact you, for instance. How would I know that I was facing burnout? What are the signs?
So there's a variety of different things. Quite often it starts with, you know, you're becoming irritable, very emotional. Things that, you know, would normally go over the top of your head are things that become big issues. Quite often it's a case where you can have interrupted sleep. So, you know, your mind is racing all the time about things that you've got that you would normally cope with really easily that suddenly become overwhelming. And I think overwhelm is one of those words that probably describes, you know, early burnout very well. Quite often you're just really absolutely exhausted. And you generally find that other people will notice it before you do. I had a major corporate burnout that left me unable to work for many years. I became a stay-at-home dad before I retrained as a coach. And burnout itself is one of those things where you can have a major sort of identity crisis. You know, you have major self-esteem and confidence crisis where you believe that you're not capable of coping anymore, even with some of the simplest things. And there are
That
some,
could be really hard.
yeah, I mean, it affects your whole life essentially, you know, particularly those people. You don't have to be working for somebody else to burn out. You can be working for yourself. And obviously those people who've set up their own businesses normally know quite well that you might go to work for somebody 40 hours a week if you're employed by somebody, but you can pretty much double that if you're running your own business, particularly if you don't have support and help. And so there's actually a lot of entrepreneurs. You know, I help a number of entrepreneurs who just feel completely overwhelmed because they've started their own business but don't realize, you know, you have to be the salesperson, you have to be the accountant, you have to be, you know, the person who's doing the marketing. You might be the expert, for instance, as a coach or whatever. It turns out that you do, but you have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, and not everybody realizes that who sets out on their own business journey. Not a lot of people until they're
We learn
doing
it the
it.
hard way.
Yeah, you kind of learn the hard way, and so I know an awful lot of entrepreneurs, particularly in their first or second years, who get themselves to a position of burnout, you know, where they become exhausted, overwhelmed. And quite often it's a case where, there's an awful lot in the press about well-being, mental well-being, and going out into nature, having walks, eating healthily, which is all the right things to do, completely all the right things to do. But for me, those things are sort of trying to deal with the symptoms rather than the cause. And so, like most things, you have to deal with the underlying causes. And sometimes that's about somebody's values. Sometimes it's about their beliefs about themselves, or about, particularly around their relationship with money. There's an awful lot of entrepreneurs who don't like the feeling that they need to sell something. So asking, somebody for money in return for your services or product is something that quite a lot of entrepreneurs feel challenged by.
Yeah.
And that can then lead to, stress. I mean, ultimately, burnout comes from stress. Stress is how we're designed to deal with things. But it's ongoing stress that leads to burnout. And that's why it's so essential to deal with the underlying issues rather than just trying to deal with, the symptoms. We'll all feel better by, eating more Brussels sprouts, or going for the walking the dog, or going out into the woods. But actually, when you get back to what you're doing day to day, you're just kind of re-stressing yourself. And stress isn't just a mental thing. It affects all sorts of physical health things. It has an impact on your heart, has an impact on your blood pressure. There's a whole stack of different things that respond to you being stressed all the time that your body is just not designed to do. We're not designed to be stressed all the time. We're just designed to that thing of fight flight, short-term bursts of stress. So when it's ongoing, that's when it's unhealthy, both from a mental health perspective as well as a physical health one.
And if you don't look after yourself, then nobody will be able to look after your clients. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you work for yourself,
yeah,
when you work for somebody, you can take time off and have sick pay. When you work for somebody else, potentially you have other benefits. Both being able to utilize a sort of an employee benefits facility. When you work for yourself, obviously you are the business, you are the person who's carrying the can, and quite often, if you are overstressed, if you are heading towards burnout or have burnt out, you run the risk that you have a double whammy because all your income goes. So yeah, really important for us to keep both physically healthy and have good physical well-being, but also to have a good way of dealing with our mental well-being as well. The way that we deal with things from a stress perspective, and the way we live our lives. It's been proven that a lot of cancers, for instance, are ultimately linked to not just our physical bodies but our mental health as well.
Some people say that you create cancer yourself. Okay, this has gone completely off track. That's what happens from time to time. So, but all of this affects our businesses and our ability to attract in clients. And again, all that ties back into the intellectual property, because if you don't protect that, then how can you protect yourself, and how can you care for those that you care for?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it comes back to that thing we were talking about. Ultimately, we're talking about people protecting their businesses, whether that's through trademarking and such like, and insurances, or whether it's a case of protecting your business through, looking after yourself physically and mentally. The same thing applies. If you are the business, you're the business entrepreneur who gets impacted by those different things. And that thing about the passive income, like we were talking about earlier, if you're a business who has intellectual property rights that you can capitalize on, that you can monetize in some way, it really takes the pressure off you having to sell, and keep finding new business, because ultimately you have money coming in without having to necessarily do huge amount of workload behind it.
Yeah. And that might actually be the ultimate goal for certain people. I mean, I know I'm connected to this guy who has a steel manufacturing business, and he has created it so that he's able to step away. He's able to go on holiday without it affecting the business, because he has an off-hands kind of business.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that's easier to create than in other cases. It depends very much on the type of business that you've got. However, when you've got licenses that, like that colleague of yours, then it becomes easier, because you could then have the hands-off approach to it, and so that there are advantages and disadvantages to everything, but having the protection in place will enable you to do a lot of these things.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the other thing that is a mistake is a lot of people assume that trademarking and IPR is only relevant to manufacturing companies, for instance. Like we said earlier, about a lot of people have a misunderstanding that it's about big business.
Yeah.
Whereas the reality is it's also relevant to small businesses, but also it's like we were talking about the colleague I had. It's equally as valid, equally as important for service-based businesses as it is for manufacturing companies.
Yeah. And also, I was a podcast guest recently, and my host, she said that a lot of people think that it's only celebrities that need trademarks, and that couldn't be further from the truth either, because yes, I get that they have reached a certain status, however, they didn't get there like this. All of us start in one place and then move up the scale. Nobody starts up there. They don't burst onto the scene already well known. It never happens. And I know that some celebrities decide to trademark their children's names, and on the one hand I can understand it, and on the other hand I feel that it's a bit overkill.
Yeah.
But it's at the end of the day, it's up to the individual. What is it that they're wanting to protect? What is it that they're wanting to spend their money on? I'm not going to judge anyone for protecting something, because that's the whole point in me being here. I'm here to help you protect whatever you create. So if I was judging somebody for doing that, that would be like me cutting my nose off to spite my face. That wouldn't be a very clever idea. It's just sitting down and evaluating, what is it exactly that I'm wanting to do with this? There are other ways of protecting your children. You can avoid sharing their photographs online. You don't have to do that, and it might actually be in your child's advantage that you don't, because there are people who will share photographs of their children where they are smeared in chocolate or ice cream or whatever, and they feel that it's so cute. However, once those photographs are out there, when that child gets to the situation of wanting their first job, those photos may very well show up in an internet search, and that may not be to their advantage. They may feel frustrated because somebody has shared these photographs of them without considering what will happen down the line. You don't have to share every photograph of your child. I mean, if I had children, I don't think I would do it. My little brother is very, very protective of his children. I've got loads of photographs of his children. I don't share them because I don't have his permission.
It's interesting that you're talking about that there, Celeste, because you see a lot of these celebrities or people who are famous for whatever reason, reality TV shows or whatever it turns out to be. But quite often, the money that those people make is off the back of the agreements that they have in place with the tabloid press. And essentially, they own the copyright, effectively, of those images of themselves. There are celebrities who've made a fortune, not necessarily out of what they do as a day job, but by selling their stories, by selling, photographs of themselves, which essentially is coming back to what we were talking about earlier, another way of monetizing intellectual property right. The photographs becomes their intellectual property right. And essentially they can earn an absolute fortune by appearing in Hello magazine or The Sun or The Mirror, whatever it turns out to be. But they are actually selling those photos themselves to the press in return for an income.
Yeah.
And they retain that. Their photograph is taken once, but then they're earning money time and time and time again.
And then there are
the power of IPR.
Then there's the other side of it where somebody, for instance, like Princess Diana, she was almost hunted by the paparazzi. So some people said that she was using them to her advantage, but in some situation it gets out of hand nearly, and so it's about understanding how to do it without harming yourself.
Yeah, it comes back to that thing about if you want to put yourself in control, whether that's your business or whether that's your visibility to the public, having control of your IPR is essential, and also being able to monetize it in some way. You have to have those core things, coming back to trademarks, coming back to protecting your intellectual property. If you don't have those protections in place, somebody can simply ride off the back of your intellectual property, and they will be the ones making the money out of it rather than yourself.
Exactly.
The paparazzi, part of the reason why they exist is that when they take photographs of people, they are the ones that end up, having the rights and the IPR to sell those, copies of those photographs that they've taken, rather than you being able to dictate to the press which photos appear and you actually making some money out of it. Yeah. Same applies to artists and things like that. When they license other organizations to be able to do prints of their original paintings and things like that they've created. And musicians, if musicians didn't have legal things put in place, people would be able to use their music, their songs, without them getting royalties. So it's exactly the same sort of concept when you're running your business.
Yeah. Okay, we've been talking now for over an hour. Shall we wrap this up and say that we look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday?
Yeah, I think Thursday is going to be really exciting. I think it's one of those things where, again, a lot of people have the concept that some of these things are kind of boring or they're legalistic or something like that, but don't realize how important they are, but also how exciting they are from a business perspective. That you can protect yourself but also earn loads of money. It's one of those things that as a business person, you shouldn't just be relying on your core product or your core service to be earning yourself money. Exactly. you owe it to yourself and your family to be earning in as many ways as possible, and that includes selling your IPR, whether that's along the way or whether you sell it when you eventually sell up your business.
Yeah, or even put a license in place. But
yeah, put a license in place and earn from it, and retire to the beach and work the occasional hour every week.
Yeah. Anyway, thank
looking
you
forward
so
to
much for joining me, and it was fun at the beginning when I didn't know whether you were coming back or not.
Yeah, sorry about the problems with my laptop. I'm going to have to investigate. Probably my children have turned something off that I haven't realised.
Yeah, I mean, but the weird thing is that you were actually on a Zoom call and it worked there. So, but hey
Yeah,
ho,
yeah.
we got it to work in the end, and we've had a lovely conversation here and covered a lot of ground and a lot of different topics,
Yeah.
which makes it easy, not easier, but more interesting for people, because when there are two people instead of just me sitting here yammering along, it becomes more organic, it becomes more interesting and more engaging, I feel. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. Good talking to you, as always.
Yeah, I'll just end the broadcast and
thanks, Celeste. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Bye for now.
Take care.